The Rubicon I'm driving right now, I'm not aired down. One, because the rig's pretty capable the way it is with lockers front, rear, and the sway bar disconnects, and the factory grabbing tires, big tires. But mostly I'm just lazy and I don't want to have to air back up again driving around in town.
Now obviously we're out here at the 50th annual Easter Jeep Safari. About to take some pretty big rocks here.
Yeah, this section right here is interesting because you're actually somewhat blind. You just have to take a look at whatever you're coming at and make sure you pick the right line. Really, that's the big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize when they get out here is these aren't roads, and they don't recognize that that you're going to have a vehicle that can just make it straight down some of these things, or straight up some, or just traverse them. The idea is to find the path that looks the most like a flat road. And that's, of course, if you're not looking for an aggressive move. If you're trying to accomplish an obstacle that's got washing machine sized boulders, then yeah, okay, then it's just depending on your specific vehicle and what's going to be easiest for you to get up there. So here's a situation that looks relatively harmless, but it's not. You're thinking, okay, no big deal, the tire's going to work its way around that rock, but likely not. What's probably going to happen is, one, you're going to cut the tire on this in the sidewall, which is really the thinnest part of your tire. Or two, you're going to scratch your rim all up coming around it. So when you want to get up and over obstacles, either make sure you clear it or you get up and over it. Don't try to like straddle it and get as close as you can to it. You got to know where your low points are. So when you get underneath this Rubicon, you notice that your pumpkin is your lowest point. It's right here. You probably don't want that to hit your low point. So then you can maybe drive around it, and then you have a clearance all the way that way. And if it's an immobile object, these just topple over. But if it's a mobile object like a planted rock or a tree trunk or something like that, you really don't want to hit your powertrain with it or anything else underneath your vehicle and rip something off or do some damage. So here's a perfect example where you have a high obstacle in the road. It's a rock that's centered, but I'm going to use it to keep my vehicle high. So I'm going to put the right front tire up and over it rather than risk it finding some place to strike underneath my Jeep. You can also use a rock like that to help grab some clearance for your differentials over other rocks. So if you want to pop a right or a left tire up and on top of something larger, it's going to give you that much more clearance for your differentials and other obstacles underneath your vehicle. So other things to be mindful of when you're in the vehicle is cab floaties. Cab floaties are anything that aren't bolted down. So if it's not bolted down, it's going to fly around, like coffee cups, radios, cell phones, lights that are clipped up here and fall off while you're driving and hitting a speed bump, like in your Jeep.
Yeah. Oh, did that fall off? Yeah.
That gave me the idea to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Cab floaties are a bad idea. Also, I've seen people put things around the shifter area, and sometimes if you're driving a manual, especially if you needed to make a quick shift and there's something sitting up there, whether it's a CB radio or an air freshener or some little pocket thing that you thought was great to hold garbage, whatever, you slam your shifter forward and you hit it and you miss shift or something like that. It's just good to make sure that the ergonomics of the different functions inside the vehicle, the systems, the controls, still are free the way they were designed from the factory.
Yeah, because I can imagine that it's also a safety hazard too.
Well, I don't know, but just depending on how bad it is, right? Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want to put an inner tube around your shifter, or have something rolling around on the floor of the vehicle, maybe getting stuck under a brake pedal. Yeah, that would be a problem. Another thing that helps when you're doing that is left foot braking. So it's the two L's, lines and left foot braking. Left foot braking is great when you're going up some section like what we're approaching right now, where it's kind of a interesting deal and I don't want to lunge the vehicle back and forth. Now if you have a manual, it's easy because you just put it in gear and just let the thing crawl, and the gears hold the vehicle back. If you're an automatic, it's a little bit different. So you're fluid driven and having a left foot, so you have your right foot on the throttle, your left foot on the brake, and you're just modulating them. You're not holding anything back, but you can have a lot more control about keeping the load on the vehicle as to what you're doing, instead of having drivetrain lash, like, oh, you know, this kind of thing, you know, coming back and forth.
Yeah, sure.
Lunging. So and it's finessing the two of them together. There's very, very few times where I'm full anything, brake or throttle, in this type of technical driving. It's usually just like a little bit of either one or a combination of the two. Like right now I'm hitting the brake a little bit just to slow myself down through here, but I have such a nice crawl ratio with the Rubicon that I can go as slow as I want and don't have to worry about stalling out the engine. I still have tons of torque to be able to get me over these obstacles.
So now we've been focusing a lot about going uphill, some strategies we can do to get back up the hill, but what happens when we have to turn around and come back down?
The biggest problem people run into with that is vehicle speed. If you think that you're safe at a certain speed, or just coming up the hill, you obviously have to hit the gas or hit the throttle to be able to get yourself up the obstacle. Coming down speed, generally you're used to using momentum and gravity. So as you're approaching obstacles, you just make sure that you're just not going too fast to be able to pop it. Not only that, as you're coming down hills, remember that you're hitting a transition, and then when you come off of a big obstacle and you get the front over it, it's clean. You get the middle over it, the brake over it, that's fine too. It's the departure angle where most people hit it, and that is you come off of something, they hit the gas on the brake over, and then they come down and it's wham! You hit the back of the vehicle on whatever it is, bone-crushing rock or obstacle that happens to be back there. So it's just making sure that you come over everything about the same kind of speed as you did coming up, only it'll be a lot easier because you only have to work one pedal, and that's the brake.
Does 4-low help you in compression braking as well?
Absolutely. That's what you really are using 4-low for, is compression braking and in control. So 4-low, it just allows the vehicle to go really slow but still have plenty of power and capability. So it's just nice to be able to have the time to think about what you're doing before you get there, and 4-low helps you do that, and it still helps let you have the power you need. So in technical driving like this, there's no excuse not to use anything else. You're working the engine, you're working yourself, either a clutch or transmission more than you need to.
So let's talk a little bit about the modifications that we can do. What kinds can we start with that will really help us?
I've probably been asked more than anything else, what lift do I need to fit certain tires? And tires and lift give you ground clearance and more traction. I've seen a lot of that. It really depends on the type of vehicle you're buying. For example, the YJ at one point in time was probably one of the least liked Wranglers or Jeeps.
Absolutely.
But now it's a commonplace to have one because they're inexpensive and you can go out and experience and have fun with Jeeps without paying an extremely high price tag. And so if you want to bring up the capability of a vehicle like that, then wheel lift and tires and wheels usually helps initially. However, when you're considering some of the new vehicles that are out there, like a new Wrangler, you get a lot of those features factory. So, and they're all built by engineers at FCA, so you're getting the lockers, the sway bars, the bigger tires, the stability control systems tuned for it. There's just a lot of features that come with it, and they're already engineered and they're warranted. So it's tough to make the comparison. If you have interest in owning a Jeep and you have the ability to be able to get a newer Jeep, I'd probably start with something that's newer and has a lot of the features already built on it, rather than trying to build something up and make a whole bunch of engineering changes that really haven't been proven in a vehicle. it. If you have buddies that have been doing it and you got friends that'll help you work on it, then, and you have a budget, there's only really one way to go. So there's positive and negatives to long wheels and a short wheelbase vehicle. In certain obstacles, this one maybe not so much, but let's say this obstacle right here. If you wanted to take this on, I think either a short wheelbase or long wheelbase would be able to do it. Let's just use a Wrangler for example. The four-door Wrangler has a longer wheelbase, so let's say the rear tire's positioned here. And the four-door Wrangler, your front tire's already up here on this flatter surface, gaining traction to be able to pull you up on over the obstacle. On a two-door, you could find yourself in a situation where the front tire is still on an incline trying to gain traction, and at that point there's this movement of weight between the front and the rear, and it could find itself kind of doing a hopping motion instead of grabbing and clawing its way up. Just like you or I, if we're walking up something like this, you don't want to do it in baby steps, right? That doesn't work very well. It's your stride that makes the difference to be able to get you up. And long wheelbase to short wheelbase works the same way.
Let's talk about some commonly made mistakes that first timers have or novices have when they're off-road.
So what's pretty normal is people are used to driving on streets.
Is your butt pretty clenched?
Yeah, heart rate's high.
You gas, you brake, you come out of an intersection. They're pretty assertive movements in your throttle or your brake. You make the decision you want to do that, and then you move forward with it. In off-roading, it's not that simple. You're doing a lot of things that, you know, you're giving inputs, but you don't want to overdo it. So no sudden stops, no sudden accelerations. Those types of things are not going to help you. So when people are inconsistent in the use of their throttle or the brake, you get the herky-jerky movements. You start getting up over an obstacle and you feel like you've got it, and then you come down too fast and you smack it. So it's one thing to pay attention to how you get up and over the obstacle, so your approach,
Okay.
then your brake over, but your departure has to be just as smooth. So as you're coming off like we are right now, that back end, I took it really easy because I knew it was going to be a steep drop, and I didn't want to tag the tow hooks or the tow hitch or the bumper or anything else, the muffler that might be back there. But that is absolutely the most common mistake, is inconsistent inputs. When you've made a commitment to climb a hill or come down a hill, just try to maintain a speed. Your throttle input shouldn't be modulating aggressively. It should be small, little movements. So this is a good example of an undercut. Now, and that doesn't look like a lot of people try to attack this, which makes sense. The problem with it is that it allows your tire to get past the point of where you want to be on top. So meaning a lot of your tire exists underneath something that you want to get on top of. And if most of you exist on something